Welcome to the Consulting Success Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Zapersky. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into the world of elite consultants, where you'll learn the strategies, tactics, and mindset to grow a highly profitable and successful consulting business.
Hi there, and welcome back to another episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. Joining Michael on the show today is Christopher Penn, who's the co-founder and chief data scientist at Trust Insights. At Trust Insights, he helps clients solve their marketing, analytics, and strategy problems using data. Before we get there, as you're going to hear, Christopher has grown his revenue 5x in the last few years. Now, if you're looking for growth like Christopher and are motivated to elevate your business from 6 to 7 figures, we have something just for you. We're offering a free consulting blueprint that can be your guide to growing to 7 figures. To download it free, just visit consultingsuccess.com/guide to secure your free copy today, or click the link in the show notes section of this episode to grab the free ebook. Okay, so now let me tell you a little bit more about what you're going to learn in today's episode with Christopher, who has worked with the likes of Twitter, T-Mobile, McDonald's, and many more. Now, in this episode, you're going to learn how to utilize a newsletter to grow your audience and customer base, how to use data to make strategic decisions, how to leverage AI to scale your business without adding to your workload, how to use media and podcasts to help you with SEO and increasing your mailing list, how to use Slack to be able to talk directly to your audience, and how to implement AI to grow your consulting firm, plus so much more. Here to share with you his insight and story is Christopher Penn. Enjoy.
Christopher Penn, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start off and have you share, what does Trust Insights do?
So Trust Insights is a management consulting firm. We help companies make more of their data. We help them use their data at all. We have been doing a lot of analytics, data science, and obviously in the last few years, a ton of artificial intelligence. In fact, that's one of the reasons why the firm got started. Was the previous firm my co-founder and I were at was a PR agency. And I've been working in AI for about 10 years now. And I saw a direction that I wanted to go with my career. I saw the direction my old PR firm was going. I'm like, we're not going to the same place. So we left and started the company because of that.
Yeah, tell me a little more about that. So I believe your co-founder, Katie, and you, so this is kind of what you're referring to. What was it that you saw more specifically that made you feel like you want to go in this direction as opposed to continuing down the path of the PR company?
So the PR firm was focused, as it should have been, on public relations, media relations, and stuff like that. And I think the company was a very good company to work for at the time. And we saw the opportunity in analytics, in data science, to make more of the data. All the clients we talked to were like, we're spending all this money. We don't know what we're getting for our money, or we don't know if this thing worked, or we need an attribution model that can handle the complexities of all these different channels. And Katie and I were like, we can do that, but we can't do that at the current company. And admittedly, a little bit selfishly, the last 3 companies I've worked at, we did a good job of building up that company's reputation and providing uniqueness, differentiation. And I made other people very rich. They sold their company, they cashed out. One of them's got, living on his sailboat all the time. Like, you know what? I kind of want to do that for me too.
Got it. Okay. So you decide to go down this path, right? Kind of investing in you and Katie being in control of the ship or the boat, if we continue on with that kind of imagery. How did you go about getting your first few clients?
So we came into it with a bit of an unfair advantage. In 2007, I started my personal blog because the company I was working at was like, we don't want you blogging about marketing on our company blog. It was a financial services company, which is totally fair. And in 2010, I started my email newsletter, which was originally monthly. And then about a year and a half in, I moved to weekly. I've been doing a weekly newsletter for about 13 years now. And when Trust Insights started, I had a mailing list of about 60,000 weekly readers. So when we got through all the rigmarole of getting the separation, the offboarding and stuff like that, first thing I did was I sent a message to my mailing list saying, hey, I'm on my own now with this new firm. And this was 2018. So all the things you know about for the last 8 years that I do, now I can do for you without the restrictions of having be through a PR firm and all that stuff. And immediately we had clients because we had that huge list to start from.
Talk to me about the process of building up that newsletter. A lot of people, I think, understand the value of having a newsletter, especially an audience and a sizable audience like you have, 60,000 people or wherever it is today. And it's not always just numbers, right? It's more value than volume, but at the same time, that's a sizable list. How much time were you spending to write that each week? Just kind of take us through a little bit of that experience.
Sure. So the way the newsletter has evolved over the years, the current incarnation really is about 7 years old. And it consists of an opening of some kind, which keeps getting longer and longer. It's practically like a 3,000 to 5,000 word article now. And then machine curated content. So I built a piece of software years ago now that scans through about 1,500 blogs that I like, and it searches through them for different topics and things and sort of distills down the posts in a few categories: SEO, social media marketing, content marketing, public relations, AI, data science, etc. And then I feature 3 articles from each of those topics in the newsletter. And then it has stuff like events. And then one of the more popular things is I have some data ingesters that go out and get data from job boards. And so there's a selection of new jobs that I found that I think would be a good fit for my audience. And that goes in the newsletter as well. And so the goal is to try and provide as much value as possible to the subscriber in the hopes that there's something in there every week that you can look forward to. Maybe you're looking for a job. Maybe you're not. That's fine. Here's some of our content. Here's a whole bunch of other people's content. And then here's my point of view on a specific topic. Now, since really about May or June of last year, the opening letters have pivoted entirely to talking about AI. And then, of course, once November came around and ChatGPT rolled out to the public, that's all anyone wanted to hear about. But that's the process for the newsletter. In terms of building that audience, it was really built on the back of the early days of social media. So I was one of the very first users of Twitter. I think I get user 100,000 or something back when Twitter was still functional. And it was such a driver for audience. LinkedIn, Facebook till about 2016 was great. I don't know. A lot of folks who were younger in the profession may not remember that before 2016, Facebook was the place to try and grow your business because it just pulled such great numbers for businesses. And so it built the list. And then over time, once you get to about 50,000 subscribers or so, you get momentum. As long as you don't suck, you get referrals. You get people referring. Today, that list is at about 250,000 people. So it's about 250,000 people who get it this weekly newsletter.
So I want to just back up a little bit for those who want to maybe create their own newsletter, or maybe they have one, but they want to grow it to levels that you have, or even partway to that. It sounds like you're saying that one of the biggest factors in growing that list was sharing content. And it was the content from the newsletter on different social channels like LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter or whatever it was. Obviously today is different because most of those places you need to kind of pay to play, right? In Facebook, you're probably not going to get much reach just organically. But yeah, I guess one wondering, like, what did you do? And then if we could fast forward to today, if somebody wanted to start a newsletter, they might only have a few hundred people on it right now. What would be your advice on how they should go about thinking to actually grow that newsletter?
So those are two good and different questions. What worked from about 2010 to about 2017 really was a public social media focused. Back around 2016, 2017, you started to see private social media networks cropping up. Slack, for example. Today, Discord is easily one of the most powerful places to network, to meet people, to have conversations about common topics. And for example, all the big tech companies have Discord servers. Now, Google just opened up a Bard Discord server it's got like 100,000 people in it. And these communities are focused around an interest, focused around a specific crowd. And if you can find them and join them and start participating in them, you can get a lot of attention on your media properties relatively quickly. And if you can't find a community, that's a sign that you need to start one, because it can very quickly grow to be a reinforcer of your business. Today, if I was starting from scratch today, I would look at a hosted platform. Something like Ghost or Substack would be my choice, because they have a lot of features built into them, particularly those two. They make running referrals much easier than older systems where you can say, hey, refer a friend. In fact, Substack rolled out referral rewards where you as a creator can set up tiers of rewards. Like, hey, refer 25 people, you get this. Refer 50 people, you get this. And, you decide like free ebook, hour of consulting, whatever. And having those network effects built into your newsletter is the fastest way to grow it, especially because, social media now is so different and so scattered. Even just looking at I call them the Twitter diaspora, right? You had Twitter became X as in exploded. Then you have Mastodon.
I can tell you have no point of view or perspective on that one.
Yeah, no feelings whatsoever. But you have Mastodon and Blue Sky and Threads, and then all these places. We don't have that common public water cooler anymore. So the crowds are sort of scattered to the winds. So it's now a question of, if you're just getting started today, setting up that community, setting up that newsletter.
So that's really what I'm hearing you say, Christopher, is like to identify where are your ideal clients or where are those potential readers hanging out, insert yourself into the conversations there, share valuable information. Of course, you have to let people know that you have a newsletter in one form or another without coming across as being too salesy or promotional. You do that consistently, people start coming onto the newsletter. Right after a while, it kind of takes or builds momentum upon itself. And what you're talking about is some of these newer platforms like Substack, or you said Ghost, or maybe Beehive, or some of these other ones. They have some of these tools that actually help you to generate more referrals to build the newsletter by itself. All right. So let's come back. You and Katie start Trust Insights, right? You leave this PR firm. You send out an email to your list of 60,000 people, and business starts to come in. In those first kind of few years of that business coming in, what would you say was kind of one of the biggest challenges that you had to kind of figure out or get through?
In year 2 of the business, this little thing happened called a global pandemic. Right? Talk about sailing into headwinds where everything shut down, business shut down. And as a B2B company, what happens with the consumer happens to the business within months, right? So as consumers stopped spending or changed spending habits, supply chains change, B2B companies change, and what B2B companies wanted to buy change. And one of the decisions we made very early on was to refocus our product offerings very quickly on very tactical stuff. For the first most of 2020 and early 2021, we're going to offer stuff that does not demonstrate our full capabilities. We're going to offer stuff like Google Analytics audits, right? And helping people get ready for Google Analytics 4, which came out in October of 2020. Stuff is very tactical, but it's easy to get budget for compared to, say, a strategic audit, right?
So you're looking for opportunities in the market rather than saying, this is like really what we want to be known for. You were thinking, we need to survive short term. Let's just figure out where can we continue to, where can we ensure that revenue is coming in to sustain this business? And so you went to what the market was already willing to invest in, and you just simply offered a solution for those problems.
Exactly right. We went to market with something that we knew people needed, particularly just knew from long experiences. Within 3 months of the pandemic and the first lockdowns, we knew decision makers and companies were going to be saying, okay, I need to throttle back spending. What should I cut? What should I keep? And then they would ask their teams. Their teams were like, we don't know. And so offering analytics help was sort of the easy way to help those decision makers make those decisions very quickly. And so as we did that, we used that as sort of a foot in the door, if you will, to say, hey, by the way, when we were looking at your analytics data, your SEO program's a mess, or, your social media program's a mess. There's no data to support funding it, or here's what you're doing wrong. And so analytics for us was a way to see a bigger picture of the business internally and then help those clients unlock more value inside their own businesses.
Yeah, I think that's a really great reminder for people that oftentimes there might be something that you as the expert want to provide to the marketplace, but if people aren't looking to buy it, it can be very challenging. And so especially if you're earlier days in your business, find what people want to buy, find what's easy for them to make a decision around, and simply offer that. As you said, get your foot in the door and expand opportunities from there. So if we fast forward today, Christopher, just describe the current team. How many people? What does the company kind of look like?
So we are 3 full-time, 2 part-time, 1 intern, and an army of machines, is the way I describe it. And it's interesting because our revenue has gone up like 5x in the last couple of years, but the number of humans has not, because as the AI space has matured, we're able to do much, much more without adding headcount. So, for example, things like content curation, we built a system for that. Things like reporting and attribution modeling. we don't have people going out downloading CSV files and stuff like that. We have machines that connect to all these data sources and do all the processing for us. And now with the advent of generative AI, really in the last 18 months, our capabilities have dramatically increased, but our headcount has not. You know, when you have a tool like ChatGPT, for example, you basically have a data scientist and a programmer on staff now, if you know how to use them. Over the weekend, I had ChatGPT build me a piece of code in Python to replicate a service that was previously hundreds of dollars a month. I'm like, wait a minute, we can do that ourselves. And so I wrote the instructions. I walked it through the steps. It spit out the Python code. I set up the database. And now I have this service that I can now value add to my clients to say, hey, I can check out your website, all the different marketing technologies, and tell you how well it's implemented. Using a piece of code that I co-wrote with ChatGPT, I spent $20 a month for the paid version of it, right? Plus 20 years of my own programming experience. And now I have this thing where I can offer a customized version of how I think this tool should work to the marketplace.
Hey, it's Michael here, and we'll be right back to the podcast. But first, are you ready to grow, scale, and take your consulting business and marketing to the next level? If so, our Clarity Coaching program may be a great fit for you. You'll work with our experienced team to set up a strategic plan for your business and coach you step by step in areas like how to consistently attract more leads, develop a magnetic message that resonates with your ideal clients, strategically package and position your services, earn higher fees, win more proposals, and scale your business. To find out more about Clarity Coaching and apply, go to consultingsuccess.com and click on coaching.
Incredibly powerful. I think, most people still are only like scratching the surface, if that at all, to understand the potential benefits of it. Obviously, you being a technology person, a marketing person, you're able to take the ideas that you have, see things that probably others can't see, and then actually put them to work to create that. So I think that's a great example of finding ways to grow the business, grow revenue, grow profit without necessarily having to headcount. So what I would love to know is, how are you thinking about growing the business today? I mean, you said there's 3 full-time people, 2 part-time people, 1 intern, right? An army of robots, going out there and building this business. But for you guys as a company today, how are you thinking about growth? What does growth look like to you? What does it mean to you? I mean, is it adding another X amount of money, or what does that look like when you think about growth?
Growth is revenue, and we are always wanting to increase revenue. We're wanting to increase margin as well. Can we use the technology to be so much more efficient with our time that we can take on more clients, deliver the same or even better service, and not have to work more hours in the day? And the answer to that question is yes, thanks to generative AI, thanks to these tools and models. It is not only possible, it is doable with what you have access to today to be able to do that. For example, OpenAI just released the GPT-4V model for ChatGPT, which is the vision model. You can give it images now and have it interpret them. If you are a marketer, for example, one of the easiest things you can do is take a screenshot, say, of your Google Analytics dashboard and say, hey, ChatGPT, write me my monthly report of what happened this month in my analytics. And it'll spit out a report of it. And you're like, okay, great. That saved me an hour and a half of time of the manual labor doing that. Now I can use my 15 minutes of my own expertise to improve on what it delivered. If you are, for example, an agency that does UI UX, use the take full page screenshot feature in Chrome. Take a full page screenshot of your client's website, put it in ChatGPT and say, hey, ChatGPT, give me some UI UX suggestions for this website to improve the UI UX, the user experience for this. And of course, it will give you its stock listing. And then you would tune the prompts and things to the way you think UI UX should work. And now you're having it basically as a junior analyst on your team. All of these capabilities, when we look at growing our business, we are looking at what we do today and how much of that can we automate without sacrificing quality, because it's really important to us. We want to maintain our reputation. And then as new capabilities emerge in tools and things, we look at that and say, okay, how can we take a look at this thing and say, what could we do with it that's valuable to a client that they either are doing it very inefficiently now or can't do it all? How can we offer that to a client?
Is that new, the ChatGPT 4V, the version, that's for paid only, right? For people who are paying the $20 per month. There's lots of other kind of tools out there similar to ChatGPT, Claude or Bard or whatever, Copilot. Are there any that you feel are necessarily better or What are your thoughts on that in terms of what's the latest and greatest?
So it is October 9th as we're recording this. So if you're listening to this after October 26th, ignore everything I'm about to say because it's outdated.
Why October 26th?
I typically give people about 2.5, 3 weeks because the news changes that fast.
Gotcha.
Here's what is out there right now. And it depends on the use case. So ChatGPT with the GPT-4 and 4V model is the best model out there for complex language and programming. For long form data analysis of text, Claude is the best tool. It has it's called a context window, basically a working memory of about 60,000 words, whereas GPT-4 has about 20,000. For image recognition, either GPT-4V or Google's Bard are very good for being able to interpret images and provide some understanding. For up-to-date real-time information, Microsoft Bing or Google Bard are the best choices. ChatGPT, its memory still only goes as far as January 2022, and boy, a lot has happened since then. For sensitive information of any kind, confidential, PII, sensitive protected information, protected health information, you must use an open source model like Llama 2 running on your hardware. So if you were working with any kind of confidential data, you would download and install a free tool like LM Studio, and then one of the Llama 2 family of models, and that runs on your computer. That runs, even if you turn off the internet, you unplug the cabling, that runs, and data never leaves your computer, which is really, really important.
Let me ask you this. So you talked about the idea of like taking a screenshot of your analytics dashboard, putting that into the latest version of ChatGPT, and then asking some questions about that, like write a report of what's been happening the last month. Is there a way right now to ask questions or to connect, let's say, Google Analytics account and ask questions about, like, in the last month, where have we gotten the most traffic from, or different questions like that, and be able to actually get accurate, up-to-date responses?
The answer is yes, with an asterisk. And the asterisk is that you have to have some programming capabilities, because Google Analytics has an API. You can pull data out of that. You can then pass that data with code to GPT-4 via the API and get the answers back. There is no off-the-shelf, we just pull up a web browser, connect, click connect and go. That doesn't exist yet. And I am almost certain that as a product will exist in less than a year.
Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's get back to the building of your business, because I want to better understand what Trust Insights is up to today. So you mentioned the first set of clients came from the email that you sent to your newsletter. How about today? Are you doing any outbound reaching out to people, like ideal clients, to generate new business? Is it more inbound, or people coming to you? What are your kind of marketing activities look like from a lead generation perspective?
Almost all of our business generation comes from inbound. It comes from three sources. It comes from our email marketing, because my personal newsletter still, we run the company newsletter, and those two sources account for probably 60% of our conversions, give or take. We do a lot of public speaking. So you caught me at a good time. This is like the only week between the beginning of September and Thanksgiving in the US that I'm home. I'm otherwise on the road 3 days every week now through basically the end of November, speaking at all these different events. And third, as much as possible, I like to do great shows like this. I like to do guest appearances on podcasts and things as much as I can to talk about, well, whatever anyone wants to talk about, but understandably for the last year, it has been all AI all the time. And those combinations of activities obviously create benefits with search, right? They create benefits with social media. They get people on our mailing list, and then we're able to market to people as needed. I would say of those channels, by far, email marketing is the powerhouse for us.
So right now, Christopher, when you think about the idea of scaling and growing the business, I know that you said for you, the metric that you're really focused on when you think about growth is revenue growth. You talked about most of your leads being inbound, right? As a result of speaking appearances, going on podcasts, email marketing, and then email marketing, essentially sending out your newsletters, both your personal list, which is a very, big size list, 250,000 people, or your company list, which I would guess is significantly smaller. But that is like the working horse for you. That is generating the inbound inquiries. If you think about that as being a fire that is now lit, right? It's creating warmth and revenue and all that good stuff. If you want to pour fuel on that fire to scale the business, to double the business, or to even add 25 or 50%, let's say, in the next year, what are you thinking about? What are you actually doing? What is the plan that you guys have to grow and scale the business?
So a lot of it comes down to getting more people into our engaged audiences. Right. So that means growing our Slack community. Go to trusted/analytics for marketers. We got 3,500 people in there. I'd love to see it be 7,000, right? Or 10,000, because that's a place where we can talk to our audience directly with no one's AI in the middle. That is a critical piece of information. When you are on, for example, LinkedIn or Facebook or Google, someone else's AI is in your way. They are blocking you from being able to talk to your audience directly. Whereas Slack, Discord, text messaging, email marketing, heck, even direct mail, it is you and the audience. There's nothing in between. And so the best thing that I can tell any agency owner, any consultant, any entrepreneur, you've got to get as many people into direct relationships with your business as possible. No one's AI in the middle. For us, if I wanted to dramatically increase everything, it would be twofold. One, I would bring on a team to start pitching to more and more events, like get me on the road 40 weeks a year at bigger events and stuff. That would be one way to scale it very quickly, because particularly around the topic of AI right now, this topic's probably got about a 2-year runway where people will basically say, come tell us everything because we don't know what's going on.
Yeah. And sorry to interrupt, Chris. When you go to a speaking event, what typically happens? I mean, are you going to all these because you know over the next several months after giving that talk that good things will happen and people will come your way? Or is it that you give a talk and even at the end of the talk, people are coming up to you? Or is it that you see your email list is growing? Like, what is the actual impact of a typical kind of average speaking engagement?
Typical average speaking engagement, we typically get 1 to 2 inquiries for private consulting immediately, right at the event or within 7 days afterwards. And we typically get between 15 and 50% of whoever's in the room enrolled in one of our mailing lists, because we always give away a free ebook. We always give away something along the lines of like a free download, so that there's a reason for people to want to at least enroll with us in some capacity.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. So there's a clear CTA, right? Call to action with every speaking engagement for something, a free, valuable resource that gets people onto your email list. And then when it comes to the 1 or 2 kind of consulting inquiries, is there any call to action that you're making during your speaking engagements for that? Or is that the result of people just knowing who you now are and they reach out to you by themselves, or anything you're doing there?
It really is implicit. You know, we have one slide at the very end that says, hey, if you want help with this, here's how to email us. But a lot of it is I go through tons of examples. I go through tons of frameworks and things. I basically give people, here's the recipe book. And a lot of people say, hey, great, thanks for the recipe book. And a subset of people like, no, just come over and cook for me, right? That's the way. And those people who realize, yeah, I'm not cooking this meal. You're cooking this meal, and I'm going to pay you a lot of money to do it.
Right. So I know a big thing of what you do for your clients is helping them to actually measure the effectiveness of their marketing, right? Using AI and tools and data and analytics, all that kind of stuff. How do you think about that? I mean, it's obviously very true that, and especially in the world of consulting, and especially when it's about putting content out there, people have stuff scattered everywhere, right? On social channels, blogs, emails. Give us a little bit of insight into what are maybe the most common mistakes that people make, or what's maybe something that a tangible action that somebody could take to try and identify what's actually working best for them.
The number one thing people do wrong is not putting tracking codes on things. You have these great free tools like Google Analytics. They only work if you put tracking codes on stuff.
And so when you say tracking codes, for those that may not be familiar, you're talking like a UTM code. So this is kind of for those that may not be into this stuff as much, right? So you have like, let's say your website.com / and there's gonna be some kind of parameter in that domain name where it'll have a UTM code, and that can help you to see whatever you've kind of put in there. You can then pull that into your analytics and see, yeah, this came from LinkedIn or Twitter or X, whatever it's called, right? Or your email newsletter, or from even a speaking engagement. If you gave a specific kind of call to action, right, that might redirect and then pull that UTM code. Is that correct?
Exactly. So for example, at the most recent marketing process, we had trustinsights.ai /MPB2B23. That's a URL on our website that then has a redirect that expands out to the landing page. Then you have UTM source, MPB2B, UTM medium speaking, UTM campaign, MPB2B23, whatever, and so on and so forth. Those tracking codes, and UTM stands for Urchin Tracking Module, believe it or not. It's a legacy of the fact that Google bought Urchin software in 2005
I remember that,
and gave it away as Google Analytics. But those tracking codes are essential because they're one of the few things that are relatively durable across systems. Even in the most recent version of Apple's iOS 17 and macOS Sonoma, a lot of codes are getting cut off now. So gclid, the Google Ads ID, the FBclid, Facebook Ads ID, Instagram ID. If you're running ads and a user of an Apple product has privacy protection turned on, it is cutting off those codes and you're losing your attribution. UTM codes are one of the few that is immune to that. And you can even take it a step further and put them into short codes like we do so that it's even harder for a service to rewrite them. Those tracking codes, we tell people now, no exceptions, use them everywhere. Don't rely on a service to append them. Don't rely on a social network. Don't rely on this, that. Hard code them into any place that is not your website. UTM code should never be used on your own website, but put them everywhere else.
And why should they not be used on your own website? So as an example, let's say somebody has a contact page where there's a form, and then they have, let's just make this up, 10 different pages on their website. Wouldn't it be beneficial? And I'm just going to kind of playing devil's advocate here, but wouldn't it be beneficial to know if somebody came from your services page, let's say number 1, as opposed to number 2 to the contact page or something like that? Why wouldn't you want to use them on your actual website?
You never use them on your actual website because the conversion, Google Analytics does its attribution based on the last known tracking code. So if someone came in from Facebook and went through a page and then went to your contact page form and you overwrote that, Google would say, hey, I didn't see Facebook in here anywhere, so this page gets the credit and you lose all of your offsite attribution. It's a disastrous mistake to make. Never, ever use UTM codes on your own website because it overwrites your existing tracking data, and you need that to do attribution modeling.
So how do you get around that? Is there a way to be able to get the first kind of source and the last, or what's the best practice there?
The best practice there is Google does it for you already. So within your Google Analytics data, if you dig around a little, there is essentially a first touch source medium campaign, all the UTM trackers. There's a session source medium tracking campaign for how the user came to the website at that visit. And then there is a conversion source medium and so on and so forth. And Google captures all this in its database. If you are one of those folks who has turned on the BigQuery backup inside Google Analytics 4, you can actually see all this data, just one big table, and Google gives every visitor sort of an anonymous ID. It's this long sequence of numbers. You can actually export a user by their ID and see their entire customer journey from the first time you met them through all the sessions, to all the email newsletters they've read and all the social posts they visited, all the way to the moment when they converted. And you can sew that data together and say, here is this customer's journey, what pages they went to, when they came, how they came to you. That data is now available to you in Google Analytics for free.
Got it. I know for some people this will be way over their head and too technical, but I'm sure there's some of you out there that are going like, oh, this is gold, and, excited to play around with this. So, Christopher, I'm wondering, you talked before about kind of starting your business 2 years in, right? COVID, the pandemic hits, what you had to do, how you responded, which was great advice. One of the factors, or I guess outcomes of that, has been much higher inflation that everybody around the world has been dealing with or has been impacted by. Are there any changes that you've made inside of your business because of higher inflation?
Inflation doesn't impact us tremendously because we don't have office space. Right? We're a virtual company, so there's no rent to pay, things like that. Even the utilities at my house, I have solar panels and stuff on my roof, so I barely pay for electricity as it is. There are obviously the operating costs, like the cost of internet access and things. But for the most part, inflation mostly affects our clients and what they're basically every dollar they're paying for extra transportation costs for their products is a dollar they don't have to spend on consulting. So a big part of what we do also is looking at macroeconomic data and trying to sort of read the tea leaves as to where things are going. In the macro picture, inflation is not going to get better, not for a very long time. Part of the reason for that is that climate change is causing so much supply chain disruption across the board, and it will keep getting worse and worse and worse over the next years and decades and things like that, to the point where it'll be a very serious obstacle field to negotiate. Even things as simple as food. Food is going to be a major issue in the next 3 to 5 years because of supply chains and wars and stuff like that. And what happens to food happens to the rest of the economy. There's ripple effects that spread all the way up to, hey, this consulting firm now can't charge maybe as much, or we have to add value or change our offering to deal with this. Part of what we do is we pivot also on our offerings. We're offering a lot more AI stuff because that's where the market is going right now. And so we want to be able to do that.
Yeah, so the AI part to me makes complete sense, right? That's what the market is very interested in. So of course, promote that. You mentioned the company is virtual, right? Still relatively small company. You're virtual, so necessarily had any big impact there from the inflation side. How about your pricing? I mean, have you adjusted your pricing either up or down as a result of what's been going on, or have you remained kind of the same over the last couple of years? Anything there?
Again, because we've been pivoting very heavily into AI, our pricing has changed. So commodity things like, hey, we'll install your Google Analytics, that pricing is relatively constant. I think we've increased prices, somewhat. I think we charge between 5 and 10 now for a basic audit. But for a lot of the AI stuff, particularly a lot of customization, the market is still undecided. So it's a question of, can you figure out what the value is that you provide and then essentially justify to a client like, hey, it's going to cost you $750,000 to build this fine-tuned version of this model. But if you deploy it properly, you'll reap 3% extra call deflection in your call center, which will save you $7 million in call center costs. If you can build some kind of justification for a client to say, here's why we charge this, because you're going to get this on the other end. If you do it right, it makes it easier for people to understand, okay, I can at least bring it to my boss and say, here's what we're getting for our money.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right. So Christopher, I want to thank you for coming on, for sharing a bit about your journey and how you built up this company so far. I want to make sure that people can learn more about you and the company, take a look at your blog, maybe join your email newsletter as well. Before we do that though, I'd love to hear, is there one book that you have either read or listened to in the last 6 months or so that you would recommend? It could be fiction or nonfiction, but it's something that you really enjoy that you think others might enjoy as well.
That's a very good question, because we read a lot of technical documentation and academic papers. I don't read a whole lot of traditional books anymore, again, because of that. I think one of the it's not a book, so forgive me, but one of the most interesting shows that I've listened to that I've gotten tremendous personal benefit from is the Huberman Lab podcast. A lot of essentially life hacks on science-based life hacks.
Yeah, I listen to that from time to time as well. So I will second that. Lots of great insights, good guests, ideas that are backed by science and research, not just somebody's opinion, which I think when it comes to health and science, right, are super important. So Christopher, thank you again so much for coming on. For those that want to learn more, and highly encourage that they do, check out everything that you have going on. Where's the one place that they should go?
The one place to start is trustinsights.ai.
All right. We will link that up in the show notes. Christopher, thanks so much again.
Thanks for having me.
And there you have it for today's episode between Michael and Christopher. If you enjoyed today's episode, then be sure to hit that subscribe button wherever you listen to your favorite shows. And if you want to help support the podcast, I'd encourage you to share this episode out with a friend or colleague. For show notes, including links to everything referenced today's episode, including the free consulting blueprint, be sure to visit this episode page over at consultingsuccess.com. If you just want to skip that and grab the blueprint directly, head over to consultingsuccess.com/guide to grab your free consulting blueprint. To work directly with the Consulting Success team and receive personalized coaching and support to optimize and grow your consulting business, marketing, and revenue, you can visit consultingsuccess.com/grow to learn more and apply today. That's the end of the line for us this week. We'll be back next week with another episode. Until next time.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. For more episodes and to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, head on over to iTunes. And if you'd like to develop consistent lead flow and a highly profitable consulting business, learn more about our coaching programs at consultingsuccess.com.